Hey, I'm Corey.
And I'm Kyra.
And welcome to
Above the Bar,
where every week we are having conversations and libations with what, Kyra?
There's always a legal twist. Why? Because we're two lawyers here to talk about what is going on, but we're going to do it with something to ease the conversation, which is always a
libation. always.
Yes.
And Kyra has been in the kitchen cooking up something real good. So,
yes.
Kyra, tell us about our drink for today.
So, last week Corey blessed us with that amazing summer refresher. And so I wanted to stay with that, fresh fruit vibe. But today is also the last day of African American Music Month. I didn't even know that June was African American Music Month. So I wanted to kind of infuse those two. So I made us, tequila. And I used Deleon, just paying homage to Diddy, who is a trailblazer in the music industry, but also in the tequila game. So made a margarita with some fresh watermelon and fresh strawberries and lime juice. I added a little margarita mix to blend that all up in the blender, and then topped it off with some Deleon Tequilla. So, Corey, check it out. I use the Blanco. I use silver more Blanco tequila for mixing. So
all tequila is yummy to me. I'll be honest with you. Spent the weekend just keep on enriching my love for tequila.
Mm-hmm. Cheers.
Yes.
So let's just dive right on in. Let's talk about the news that there's two major headlines going on today that we just want to focus on. And the first one is Bill Cosby. I'm not gonna lie, that took me off guard. I didn't even know that he was really up for release. I know that he could have taken a probation, and early release or whatnot, if he agreed to taking sexual offender courses or whatnot, but he declined to doing so, which I kind of understand, because even though it's not an admission of guilt, public perception would have taken it that way, I feel like.
Right. And we know that he was sentenced to 3 to 10 years.
Right.
And that offender course could have put him in position for early release, but he declined, and he said, I'm never going to admit I'm guilty of that.
Right.
And so he was willing to put 10 years on the line. Mind you, this is an 83-year-old man. Put 10 years on the line just to enforce his belief that he was innocent.
Right.
And it's so funny because over the weekend I had an extended conversation with someone who was adamant of his innocence.
Oh, wow.
Someone who was already in the music game and saying, these type of using, or everyone using drugs is something that's so normal in entertainment and in that type of famous
industry lifestyle.
Right. That, to him it was normal. Now, certainly to many of us, it is not normal. But let's talk about how this actually happened, because it kind of came off the radar. I don't think anyone was checking for it because we weren't aware that their Supreme Court was reviewing it. So no one was really thinking about it. But it came to be because they're saying the whole thing should not have been used, because the kind of pivotal testimony that Bill Cosby gave himself, his willingness to testify, came with a promise that he would not be prosecuted for it criminally.
Yes.
Even though he was going to participate in a civil trial for it.
And so it's pretty much the Supreme Court is saying that, prosecution, you cannot renege on what you said and what this man agreed to in giving you the testimony. So one of the primary witnesses in that she presented the case to, DAs back when it occurred, and he was like, I don't really think that I can, present this to a court to provide you with criminal relief, but I can maybe get you, some money and provide you with a civil case. So they presented that to Bill Cosby, and the presumption at that time, not even presumption, what was laid out as fact was, hey, if you will tell us what in fact happened and give your testimony, we will not use that testimony against you and prosecute you criminally, but we will just use it for the civil case. Well, obviously years down the road, bringing it fast forward to when this was in court, most recently, they did bring his testimony up, and that is one of the pivotal points of what actually landed his conviction. And now, obviously, there's always statute of limitations. When they first presented the case, they were like 12 days, I think, against the statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations. And many of the other cases, because we know other people, there are other accusers, I think right now 56 or 58.
Yeah.
But many of their cases in their state were beyond the statute of limitations. So this was one of the only cases that was
still alive. Yeah, exactly.
So for a lot of people, this procedural snafu is confusing to them. How did it happen? Many people, especially because it's led the Me Too movement, were involved in it and feel very passionately that he's guilty and he should serve time. But again, we've talked about it before, but we know that justice in this country is the process, and the process is meant to act the same for everyone. So it was actually that DA's predecessor that came in and was like, what? Why should we do that? Successor, to say, no, I'm still going to prosecute. I see the opportunity here. And so they're saying just that whole premise, there should not have even been a trial to get you to a prosecution. So a lot of people, confuse in our system, well, I think he's guilty, so the punishment fit the crime. But we're saying, and imagine if that was you or your loved one and it was something different, maybe where you were talking about some other type of charge where they said, okay, talk to us. No one wants to be misled by the attorneys, especially the police. They do kind of mislead you, but one would expect that the attorneys are more straightforward with you in your case. So if they say, hey, talk to us, but it won't go any further in this room, and then you read that transcript and it's back on court, you want people to be held accountable for what they say. And if there was no other evidence in that case, it makes it a very difficult case to prove.
And people are saying that based on, the testimony of other people, even though their statute of limitations on their own cases has told and they cannot bring those charges forth, their testimony, they're saying collectively, could have still landed him in jail. But at this point...
Well, then that answers a second question, which the Supreme Court has ruled is moot, which is, and moot meaning it's a non-issue, we're not going to talk about it, is should he have let the testimony of the 5 witnesses that did testify in at all? Because obviously it's the judge's role to balance things. Yes, you do want an accurate picture. We knew Bill Cosby as America's dad, so he has that public image. But you can't just put witnesses on the stand that have maybe uncorroborated testimony on the stand as proof that they would have committed a completely separate crime. So you could have killed 5 people, and that doesn't mean you killed the 6th. And so it makes it, crossing over. So they did not rule on that, but certainly one could say, hey, they should not even have heard those other 5 witnesses.
And this is why we say self-representation is not it's always the best. I'm not just drawing it back to Mr. O'Neal, and it can come down to a procedural moment that makes you guilty versus not guilty. And saying that, and even with us simply saying here, like, oh, okay, they shouldn't have made those testimonies with those other women, and saying that just because you committed this crime doesn't mean you committed that crime. Well, let's say maybe his side as a defense brought in something to speak to his character. And then at that point, okay, now it's the issue of speaking to his character, not necessarily the crime. So there's so many different procedural components behind it, but at this point, for Mr. Cosby, it doesn't matter because the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania has not only released him, but it has said that they cannot refile charges against him on this matter. That it shouldn't have gone through in the first place because of the agreement that office held, and Corey made a good point. It was not that DA, but the one before him, but still you were of that office. Your office made an agreement with him, so you cannot recant on it and use that evidence against him when he gave it willingly under the presumption, under the understanding that it would not ever be used against him criminally in court. So
I think what we have to think about now is what happens to the Me Too movement. Does it lose some steam? Certainly, as we always say, our heart goes out to anybody who has suffered at the hands of sexual abuse. But the justice is justice as defined in America. And actually, America is one of the most lenient systems when it comes to criminal justice and how it's defined versus guilty until proven innocent. We say innocent until proven guilty. So there is a high bar that people have to hold themselves up to when prosecuting those kind of cases. And hopefully Me Too still means people have found strength with what has happened thus far. I saw one of the victims, or one of the supposed victims that did testify, said, you know, he got 3 years, and she felt like at least he got punished some type of way from what her experience was with Mr. Cosby.
And I just want to take a moment to say, because I've seen the commentary, and some people may not agree with what I'm about to say, that, oh, like you mentioned, that's what was going on at the time, and well, what about Hugh Hefner, and, you know, he did that, and he didn't get charged, so it's about time that, you know, Cosby got out, and he didn't, you know, he got released as well. Just because somebody else did not get punished for it doesn't mean that the other person should not. Like, if somebody incurred a crime or an offense to them by any means, then if someone did in fact do that and they're brought before a judge and they're found guilty, then yes, they should serve time for that. But I don't think people should bring up the argument to say that just because one person did not get punished, that excuses the behavior of another.
No, it certainly can't be excused. But right now, in this matter, we are where we are. I think the Me Too matter, kind of where they go forward, and if they still has momentum, because the Me Too is for everyday people, and I think for women it was empowering, it's still empowering. But when it comes to people who are higher up targets, the Bill Cosbys, the Harry Weinsteins of the world, what does it mean to them? Is it really that money and power cure all evils? And we have other cases that are going to roll out and see it. Whatever the matter, how it resolves, I am very curious. This is what I had a very, very long conversation about this weekend. What does that impact me? Bill Cosby was influential. If you were 80s or 90s baby, he was very influential in your life, how you saw Black America, how you saw Black families. And he even, for me, did a lot of good things for the Black community, even outside of the Cosby Show. So how does his reputation stand with this? Is this him, you know, coming back to life, or having some reprieve from how everybody viewed him after this Me Too? Or no matter how much he's done for a community or a culture or a time, if you do something wrong, we got R. Kelly, we got, you know, Bill Cosby. If you do something wrong, is that white, and should you be canceled?
You know, I don't agree with the statement that dismisses everything about that person. Like, I was actually disappointed that because of the sentencing of Bill Cosby, that they took the Cosby Show off the air completely, because that, like you say, impacted a lot for not just Black family, but also just seeing, as a Black woman, seeing a lawyer on there, seeing her, you know, married to a doctor, seeing an amazing family, seeing that dynamic. It was more than just Bill Cosby himself. It was the entire show and what they represented, and other things that he's done. You know, I don't think that it's fair to just dismiss everything. Now, yes, we need to acknowledge what we need to acknowledge, but his contributions to not just Black America, but America as a whole, are beyond just him as a person. So to cancel it altogether, I feel like cancels a piece of us as well, which I think we need to continue to acknowledge, especially with all the negativity and spotlight that we see in entertainment and media and things like that. So I'm hoping that this gives some reprieve and allowing, you know, the Cosby Show back on certain stations, and just continuing to, you know, the positivity that he did and the impact in the lives that he impacted in a positive way, for that to continue. And that if there were women that were wronged by him, that, you know, if the 3 years did, you know, give them some type of justice or peace, good. And if there are any woman, you know, that ever endures anything, I hope that it gave that incident with him being brought forth, the Me Too movement, gave us as women a voice to feel like, and men as well, that if there's any sexual allegations against you, or any sexual behavior that you do not want, that you do not accept, that you did not consent to, that you speak up for yourself, that you defend yourself, and that if you can't do it yourself, that you find support in someone else to help you and do it, because it's not easy to face an accuser or to admit that I was sexually victimized. So yeah.
So I guess we'll see what happens. We do know that Felicia Rashad, who has been notoriously silent as all of these has transpired, and we've seen other people from the Cosby Show come out and say things against Mr. Cosby, but she came out and she made a statement that seemed like this release for her was vindication that he was innocent, and that, you know, it is much delayed, that this should have happened a long time ago. And we've seen her get a instant response to that. Certainly now, as she is the dean of the arts department up at Howard University, you know, she, you know, is her job on the line because she made that statement. Because it's so unpopular, certainly she has a personal experience. I don't know if that was what will happen, and certainly that's her experience, and the court in a way agrees. So it's almost a case of, is personal opinion or public opinion going to weigh A, what the court says, and B, my own. So this is public opinion and I have my personal opinion. I'm saying my personal opinion, and if it becomes so unpopular in the public opinion, does that mean that I too get canceled? We've seen her do good things. She's been a long-standing actress, somebody people really aspire to, and, you know, she's now the dean of a school. So how this rolls out for her, we don't know, but I'm very curious to see what the cancel culture, if you will do now that she has spoken out for someone I'm assuming is a very dear friend, given how long they work together.
I will say this, y'all better not try to cancel the amazing Felicia Rashid, because I'm gonna have a whole problem. But one thing that I am not mad about that got canceled today, that goes into effect July 1st, is that student athletes can receive financial gain for use or benefit of their name, image, and likeness. This is something that has been a constant fight with NCAA over several years. This is probably the most impactful decision that impacts collegiate sports since probably like 1972 when Title IX got introduced. And for those who are unfamiliar, Title IX is what granted women access to be able to participate in college activities or sports and whatnot. So this is like the next landmark since then. This allows people, I am excited for the student athlete. Having been a student athlete, I ran track, so I'm not gonna lie, track was not the most profitable sport. But to see my counterparts in basketball, particularly at DePaul, we didn't have football, but I have friends that play football at other schools. And I know that they say the student athlete, well, you get a college scholarship and you get free tuition and free that. Let me tell you something. First of all, as a student athlete, especially for those who are in basketball or football or very demanding sports, they oftentimes cannot always choose their major. Why? Because the primary concern of them being there is the sport. So if their class schedule conflicts with whatever the sports schedule is, guess what? Classes come second. They have to make sure that they choose a major that allows them to be able to be free and available for games. In addition to that, there was not the accessibility to receiving additional financial aid for tutoring or things like that. There was a recent case that did enable those things. So there's been some recent activities to get us to this point, but I am so excited for student athletes as soon as tomorrow, who will probably start announcing endorsement deals. On the flip side, I know that this is going to have an impact on the amateurism of college sports, because before this it was defined as individuals who cannot receive personal gain off of participating, in sports and whatnot, and this completely flips that on its head. But
I don't know, it's so weird, because if there's money to be made, you shouldn't just be able to make it off of me. That becomes like slavery.
And that's the problem.
You sell my jerseys, and the boosters come and support it, and then I could get in a lot of trouble even just from booster support. People who are giving me kind of gifts in kind, if you will. They're giving you things instead of money, so you don't have money in the bank. But what I think is also very important is how trying these sports, even at the collegiate level, are on your body. So you doing 4 years of college basketball or college football or even college track, yes, you may get a free education, and that education may qualify you for a $40,000 job when you graduate. But then you may have years and years and years of physical pain, of doctor's bills that come from that participation. So it's not just the right now. Some people, not everyone is going to be a professional athlete. We know that's like the top 1% of athletes. But that doesn't mean you weren't an important or pivotal part to your team's success. And it doesn't mean that someone should be able to profit off of your participation. situation. So I think there were so many people that got in so much trouble for taking something that may seem very trivial.
Yeah.
They got a trip, or they took a bag, or they got this. People were offering it to them.
Right.
And often these people are coming from situations that were drastically different. So if everyone on the team or everyone that you hang around has this car or has this or that, and you are the only one filling in a deficit, and you know that your family can't fill in those gaps, because believe it or not, a full scholarship does not mean everything is paid for in the way you would want to. That's like your dorm, living on your dorm. Maybe you want to move off campus. Seniors don't want to live on dorm with freshmen, you know? So it takes care of basics, but you should be free to have a little bit more than a basic life because you have a free scholarship.
And then sometimes those scholarships fluctuate from year to year, depending on what coaches come in and what administration and what agenda they have. But you raised a good point with regards to the physical impact that they have. And one of the things that this new, kind of pulling back and not so much having or allowing for rules that they previously prohibited, it does allow, or what they're trying to allow for is for medical care beyond just you playing. And so that it will, kind of flip on its head the previous perception where if you got injured and you're dismissed from the team, that go figure it out, right? But no, they're providing some type of medical assistance to those players who do have those kind of life-altering or game-altering, injuries and whatnot. And then furthermore, I'm excited to see like this kind of business-savvy position that athletes will now be in control of with trademarking their brand and having endorsements. And some schools are even talking about having or collaborating with marketing programs to have them come in and help their athletes with this shift in the paradigm of collegiate sports. It's definitely something that I don't know if everybody's ready for. I know several states do have a name, image, and likeness kind of statutes in place, which if your state does have it, then the colleges have to align with that. If a state does not have it, then the colleges are to kind of make their own procedures and policies until we do have federal governance by the government. Now, good thing is this is a bipartisan kind of a push. Both parties, both Republican and Democrats, are in support of it. The only holdup over the past recent months has been kind of just, the details of it. But I am glad to see that both parties are in support of it. I'm glad I haven't really seen any schools speak out about it or speak against it. I'm sorry. Shout out to DePaul. I saw them that they were actually at the signing today with the governor and signing into statute new law in support of this name, image, and likeness for athletes. Ooh, go blue, go big blue. But I'm really, really, really excited for athletes to be able to have this control and power over themselves and be able to profit off of their hard work, off of their game. Because to just say you get a scholarship, I've seen so many basketball players where their academics are really just secondary to none. The main focus is basketball, and then once they graduate and they don't go pro, what do they have to fall back on? I think
as that something can be monetized, you should be able to take advantage of it. But let us cheers not only to all the athletes out there. Sound like tomorrow's gonna be some paydays.
Be smart. Hey, if you are a student athlete and you now have this new right, please be smart. Please consult an attorney. Please consult proper marketing strategists
and financial planners.
Yes, exactly. Because I'm excited for it, but I'm not gonna lie, this is definitely gonna open up a whole new can of worms. But we'll figure it out.
Let's be smart about it, and always enjoy your libations. In case you want to learn more about any of the topics we talked about tonight, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to us on YouTube and where else?
Facebook and Instagram. Be sure to comment below if you tried this cocktail. Let us know how you like it. And if you would like for us to discuss more topics, I know that one person did request for us to discuss Bill Cosby. We did. But also, they requested the BET Awards. We didn't get to that this episode, but we'll definitely keep it in mind.
Hurt my brain, so I don't know. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.